Hi, my name is Axel and I'm going to talk about biology and its branches. First of all, what is biology? Biology is the study of life and living organisms. It is a broad field including many branches and subdisciplines. Biologists study structure, function, growth, evolution, distribution, identification, and taxonomy of living things. Some branches of the biology are biomathematics, that is the application of math to the study of living things; ecology, that is the study of relationships of living things to each other and to the environment; genetics, that is the study of heredity and the lifelong development of living things; nanobiology, that is the study of biological functions at the nanoscale; and astrobiology, that is the study of life in the universe. How did life originate on the planet? Some people consider that electrical activity in the atmosphere originated life. Others suggest that the creation of life occurred in the volcanoes. Some more said that the origin of life lies on the bottom of the oceans, and others that the living beings arrived transported by meteorites or comets. But the truth is, until now, that everything that has previously happened have given rise to a system based on the deoxyribonucleic acid (DNA) and ribonucleic acid (RNA), capable of storing information to create various molecules and edit their modifications. The DNA was compact in such a way that it only opens the areas that must be transcribed, translated, replicated, and keeps hiding those that will not be required. We already know that the environment can also modify this reading and the modifications that occur in the DNA molecule. We have not seen the end of this story yet, and that is why it is relevant to continue looking for the answer to the question, how did life originate on the planet?
Hi, my name is Benjamin Gonzalez, and I'm going to talk to you about the characteristics of living things and the differences between eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells. To classify the living things from the non-living things, there are a few points that can help us identify them. First, organization. All living things are organized and complex. Unlike the non-living things, the cells in living organisms are more organized and in a more complex mechanism. Genetic code. All living things share an essential characteristic. Response to stimuli. Perception and response to stimuli that comes from the external and internal environment. For example, the humans, when we're in the sun for too much time, our body starts to sweat and our skin starts to react by burning. Homeostasis. Life maintains its balance even if it has to spend energy. Growth. All living things increase their volume over time. Reproduction. To perpetuate their species, individuals must reproduce themselves. There are two types of reproduction. The parasexual reproduction, which is basically genetic variation through exchange of DNA, and the sexual reproduction, which is the reproductive act in which the male reproductive organ in humans and other higher animals enters the female reproductive tract. The differences between the prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. The main difference between prokaryote and eukaryote cells is the nucleus, which is not well defined in the prokaryote, whereas it is well structured, compartmentalized, and functional in the eukaryotes. In prokaryotes, the cell division takes place through conjugation, transformation, transduction, but in eukaryotes, it is through the process of cell division. Genetic material, DNA, is circular and double-stranded in prokaryotes, but in eukaryotes, it is linear and double-stranded. Prokaryotes are the simplest, smallest, and most abundant cells on Earth. Eukaryotes are more large and complex cells. Nuclear membrane is absent in prokaryotic cell. In prokaryotic cell, chloroplast is absent, however, present in blue-green algae is associated with lamellae. These lamellae are not enclosed by a membrane.
Hello, my name is Alfredo Torres and I'm going to talk about the history of the microscope. Early simple microscopes were only magnifying glasses that have one power, usually about 6x minus 10x. One thing that was very common and interesting to look at were fields and other tiny insects, hence their early magnifiers called field glass. Something during 1519, two Dutch speculators, Zacharias Janssen and his father Hans, started experimenting with these lenses. They put several lenses in a tube and made very important discoveries. The object near the end of the tube appeared to the greatly enlarged, much larger of any simple magnifying glass could achieve by itself. The first microscopes were more of novelty than scientific tools, since maximum magnification was only around 9x and the images were somewhat blurry. Alfredo Jensen's microscope survived. An instrument made for Dutch royalty was described as being composed of three sliding tubes measuring 18 inches long when fully extended and 2 inches in diameter. The microscope was said to have a magnification of 3x when fully closed and 9x when fully extended. It was Anthony van Leeuwenhoek, 1632 to 1723, a Dutch trapper and scientist, and one of the pioneers of microscopic, who in the late of 17th century became the first man to make a huge real microscope. He made on his simple microscope which had a single lens and where had held Van Leeuwenhoek achieved greater success that his contemporaries were developing ways to make superior lenses, grinding and polishing a small glass ball into a lens with a magnification of 270x, the finest known at the time. Other microscopes of the time were lucky to achieve 50x magnification. He used the lens to make the world's first practical microscope. Leeuwenhoek microscope used a single convex glass lens attached to a metal holder was for using screw. Anthony Leeuwenhoek became more involved in since English new improved microscope was able to see anything so the man had been seen before. He saw bacteria, yeast, blood cells, and many times swimming about in drop water. People did not realize the magnification might real structure had been seen before. The idea of all life might be tiny components using to in it will simply not be considered.
My two topics in this video are homeostasis and organ system. Homeostasis is a response to a certain external stimulant to the body. For example, temperature. The temperature is an environmental stimulant that affects our body. So the body has to do a certain response to keep a balance in our body. And another example is the water. When we have too much water in our body, the body has certain methods to keep a balance, like sweat, urine, and other things. Here is a picture that explains it better. There is a stimulant, there is a sensor that senses, like the name says, the stimulant, there is a control, an effect, a response to the stimulant, and this counterattacks the stimulant. Then we pass to the organ systems topic, that is anatomical structures that are very important for the body because they have a certain function or task, like for example the muscular system that helps like shelter the bones, among other things like movement, and this it has various functions and tasks as the same as the circulatory system, which is basically what keeps us alive, like the heart, veins, and more.
Good evening. My name is Sinuhe Martinez and I will be explaining diseases, how your body defends against them, and some of the basic functions. Since the dawn of time, humanity has had to deal with all sorts of infectious plagues, from the common cold to deadly and hurtful infections. This threat was, and still is, one of the most dangerous things in recent human history. It's been able to kill more people in order for existence than all human wars combined. Disease is actually an umbrella term for any sort of foreign bacteria that invades a body. It can cause major damage and even in some cases, death. Luckily, our human bodies have found ways to counteract these threats and protect itself against most invaders. White blood cells are an example of some defenses that your body has set up. They attach themselves to invading bacteria and overwhelm them, causing them to become digested. However, some bacteria is going to need more than just a white blood cell in order to be eliminated. Some are even able to survive in an environment of pure alcohol. This is where bacteriophages come in. Bacteriophages are small microscopic organisms that surround almost everything. They are the most deadly living thing that humans know about, and they are expert killers, and they actually tend to ignore human cells. These superweapons are a great countermeasure to deal against highly resistant superbugs and could even be used to support humanity. However, most of this research is still very primitive and is currently being researched as I speak. Although our current knowledge regarding disease is still very limited, technology and a better understanding of disease could help us combat deadly disease and is in nothing more than just a few years ahead of us.